Hey people, it's me again. So, anyways, um, I was meaning to talk about this sort of thing, because I kept watching like these different videos about Gen Z this, Gen Z that, and in a way, when it comes to all that, um, and then there was like these other stories from Reddit that were people that were dealing with helicopter parents and all of that. And one of the things that I could think of that when it comes to helicopter parents, it was, I think some of them were just Gen Xers in a way, but it was more or less them being helicopter parents because of the fact that they grew up at the time when it was like the latchkey kid generation, and and this was kind of like the 70s, maybe even like the 80s, where there was latchkey kid generation, that sort. You know, if I could recall correctly. Yeah, and um, in a way, there were certain like TV shows or shows on Netflix that highlight like the latchkey kid generation of that sort. Because I think an example was F is for Family, because there were certain scenes in certain episodes where the kids were playing unsupervised and all that, and nobody really cared, or it was just more or less nobody was really um, were just too busy to pay attention to what was going on at that time. You know, they were just too concerned about the whole thing with Nixon being resigning and all of that sort of stuff there. So that was the thing there. So considering the other thing I was going to mention here, you know, but it was I'm trying to think. It was like one of the other things that I could remember when it came to like growing up, you know. But there was a lot of like sensational stories that happened over the years of like, you know, kids that been, you know, murdered by predators and whatnot, and that might have also ramped up uh, Gen Xer type parents to go heavily into the helicopter parenting, and it's gonna be like one of those little things again where if Gen Z ends up having kids down the road at this point, it could end up having kids who are more like latchkey kids, some sort, because it would be overcorrection on the other end of the scale. Because I even remember at one point, I think this was like back about maybe like 30-ish years ago, where I was watching a story on prime time or one of those shows, and when they had about about these parents who were kind of really lax about it, and one guy admitted that he was kind of doing this sort of lax parenting thing was because um, his dad was very strict about everything, and so him being kind of really lax with his kids was like the middle finger to his dad in some ways, and especially if there were people that had like certain issues like that, they wanted to kind of prove to their parents that I could do mine, do your job better than you, blah blah blah. that sort, you know. And it was like one of those little things there. So, anyways, I guess that's probably it. So, talk to you guys later.